Max Nation and Dog Pound. I'm Unger to the Max, coming at you with today's episode of the Sports Room Talk Show. A salute to you. Now this season, the Cleveland Browns are going to face off with the NFC North. So that means they will host the Green Bay Packers, they will host the Minnesota Vikings, and they will be at the Detroit Lions, and they will be at the Chicago Bears. Now, the last time we played the NFC North back in 2021, we went 3-1 as we knocked off the Bears, Vikings, and Lions, but lost to the Green Bay Packers in Lambeau Field on Christmas when Baker Mayfield kept giving the Packers defense all kinds of Christmas presents. Now, this season, we're going to be playing the NFC North in 3 straight games, Week 3 to Week 5. In Week 3, we host the Green Bay Packers. Week 4, we'll be at the Detroit Lions. And in Week 5, we host the Minnesota Vikings. Why do I keep saying host in air quotes for the Minnesota Vikings? Well, it's because that game between the Vikings and Browns is not actually going to be played here in Cleveland. It's going to be played over in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium in London, England. And guess what? I am freaking furious about it. I'm trying to hold back and not use the actual F word. That's how pissed off I am. Why? Well, because the Minnesota Vikings haven't played a game here in Cleveland since, 2009. Yes, that's right. The last time the Vikings played a game here in Cleveland, Adrian Peterson was still their running back. Brett Favre was their starting quarterback. I'll even look it up to see who our starting quarterback was. So, 1 second. Our starting quarterback was Brady Quinn. Now, since then, we played the Vikings in 2013 in Minnesota. That was in Week 3. Then we played them in London in 2017. That was the season where we went 0-16. And then in 2021, we beat them up in Minnesota 14-7. So this season, I thought, okay, they haven't played the Vikings here in Cleveland since 2009. Surely the NFL schedule makers aren't going to screw us over again and put that game in London. And then guess what happened? The Browns schedule gets released, and I see Week 5, home against the Minnesota Vikings, in London. And I just went like this. Ah! Why? Well, it's because I'm not going to every home game for the Cleveland Browns this season. I'm only going to a few. And prior to the schedule coming out, the teams I had listed as the must-see were the Green Bay Packers, the Buffalo Bills, and the San Francisco 49ers. Just those 4. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to see 2 of them. The Vikings and the Bills. Why? Because the Vikings game is being played in London, and I'm not planning on flying to London, unfortunately. And with the Bills, well, that's the week I'm going to be down in West Palm Beach, Florida, so I won't be in town. But, so it's unfortunate that the Vikings game is not happening in Cleveland. Again! Think about that. The last time the Vikings came to Cleveland for a regular season game was when Brett Favre was their starting quarterback and we had Brady Quinn. That's pathetic. I don't know what it is. The last 2 times we played the Vikings in Minnesota, that game has actually been played in Minnesota. And yet, the last 2 home games we were supposed to have against the Vikings have been played over in London. I don't get it. But, thankfully, the Green Bay Packers are coming in Week 3. And I am 100% going to that game. The Packers are just one of those teams that I would love to see. I have this interesting goal to try and see the Browns play every team here in Cleveland. And with the NFC East, for example, after last season, I've seen the Browns play Dallas, Philadelphia, and the Giants all here in Cleveland. I have not yet seen them play Washington. With the NFC North, I've only seen them play Chicago and Detroit here in Cleveland. So I'm going to check Green Bay's box, but again, can't check Minnesota's box. I hate you NFL schedule makers. I can check every box with the NFC West and a double bonus box because I got to see the Browns play the Seahawks up in Seattle where I met Norbcam, which that's still one of the coolest things I've ever done because, again, Norb is one of the guys who really inspired me to become a YouTuber. I saw what him, Ingraven Bids, and Tom Grossi were all doing for the Seattle Seahawks, Baltimore Ravens, and Green Bay Packers, respectively. And I was like, hey, why don't I try doing that? And it's turned into my channel, which if you recently subscribed, thank you very much. We are on the road to 700 subscribers and eventually 1,000. So I appreciate you being part of that journey. And I heard some amazing news yesterday that Tom Grossi is looking to do another 30 and 30 tour once he reaches 1 million subscribers, probably in the summer of 2026. Now, the last time he did a 30 and 30, I unfortunately was not able to go when he came to Cleveland because I was out of town in Boston for my sister's graduation from graduate school. But the one good thing that came out of that was I marked an item off my bucket list because I got to see the Boston Red Sox play in Fenway Park. But Tom, like I said earlier, Tom Grossi's one of the 3 guys who inspired me to become a YouTuber. And so I'd love to be able to do a video collaboration with him. That's why I'm trying to figure out some way to connect with him for when the Packers come to Cleveland in week 3. But I know that's going to be almost impossible because he's one of the big-time YouTubers and he's probably not going to pay attention to a small channel like mine. Though like I said, I'm trying my best to grow it. So if he actually does 30 and 30 in the summer of 2026, I'm going to try and figure out a way to be in town so that I can meet him when he comes to Cleveland. Because I don't want to miss that opportunity again. But, anyway, getting back to my main point, like I said, the Browns are playing the NFC North this season. And the last time, we went 3-1. We destroyed the Chicago Bears. We barely beat the Vikings. We beat the Lions pretty comfortably. And we only lost to the Green Bay Packers because Baker Mayfield kept giving out Christmas presents to Green Bay's defense. I'll be curious to see what the matchup is like when we play the Packers this year. Because Jordan Love, I'm a big fan of Jordan Love. I think he deserved the contract extension he got. He has come in and played really well for the Packers offensively. And for the first time since 2002, I think it is, Green Bay went out and drafted a wide receiver in the first round. So to me, that says, hey, we believe in you, Jordan Love. And the addition of Josh Jacobs at running back paid off for them because their run game transformed. And I'm very curious to see what Green Bay looks like this season. But the main wild card when it comes to the NFC North is, of course, the Chicago Bears. Because they hired Ben Johnson as their new head coach. Where did he come from? Oh, that's right. he was the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. So let's see how Caleb Williams does with Ben Johnson as his new head coach, because it was a complete and total disaster with Matt Eberflus as the head coach. Oh, God, that was horrible. And I know the Bears have been trying to improve their offensive line. We'll see how they do this season. But I look at what the Bears are doing. I thought they were going to go with Tyler Warren out of Penn State. Granted, in my mock draft, I actually had the Carolina Panthers drafting Tyler Warren, number 8 overall, because there were times last season where Bryce Young was getting forced out of the pocket and he needed a security blanket and he didn't really have anybody. Well, when I went and watched Tyler Warren at Penn State, oftentimes when Drew Aller was in a similar situation, he looked for Tyler Warren. So I'm like, okay, it makes sense. Do the same thing with Bryce Young. But nope, Carolina surprised me when they went with Ted McMillan, and that allowed Tyler Warren to drop to the Chicago Bears. But instead, Chicago went with the tight end, Colston Loveland, I believe out of Michigan. And Tyler Warren would end up dropping to the Indianapolis Colts, who we will play next season. I believe that game will be here in Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken. Nonetheless, though, oh, that reminds me, this season, the Cleveland Browns will be playing the AFC East, which means they will be at the New England Patriots, at the New York Jets, home against the Buffalo Bills, and home against the Miami Dolphins. We're also going to host San Francisco, host the Las Vegas Raiders, and of course play the Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, and Cincinnati Bengals. So it'll be interesting. I'm very excited for these NFC North matchups. I'm still freaking pissed that the Vikings game is not here in Cleveland. I'm trying to hold back my anger about it. And again, you might be saying to yourself, Unger, why are you so pissed that the Vikings game is not in Cleveland? Well, let me tell you, because I've seen the Vikings play the Browns here in Cleveland. However, it does not count. Why? Because that game was in preseason. It's the same reason why I'm not counting the game I saw last season between the Packers and Browns, because that was preseason. So for me, I have not yet seen the Packers here in Cleveland. I have not yet seen the Vikings here in Cleveland. And I felt like this season was my best chance because I knew that the AFC North was going to play the NFC North. And I knew that the Browns were supposed to host both the Packers and the Vikings. Well, the schedule makers are giving me the Packers, but they screwed me out of seeing the Vikings because they want that game in London. Again! What did we do to you? I get it. We were scheduled to play in London this season. But couldn't you have made that game be against, I don't know, the Miami Dolphins or the Tennessee Titans? Like, why can't the Minnesota Vikings play a game here in Cleveland? They haven't done it since 2009. I don't get it. Here's the other interesting thing about the Cleveland Browns schedule. They have, count them, 0 primetime games. 0! Last season, they were supposed to have 4 primetime games. Monday Night Football against the Denver Broncos, Sunday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins, Thursday Night Football against the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Thursday Night Football against the Cincinnati Bengals. Well, the Browns got flexed out of 2 of those games. Thursday night against Cincinnati and Sunday night against Miami. Given that the Browns stupidly drafted Shedeur Sanders, I have no idea why the Browns did that, but it has Jimmy Haslam's fingerprints all over it. That's a completely separate video for another day. But when the Browns drafted Shador, I was like, okay, they'll probably get a Sunday night game or a Monday night game. There was even a rumor that the home game against the Green Bay Packers was going to be a Monday night football matchup. Nope. Every game for the Browns except three actually, are at 1 o'clock. The only games that are not at 1 p.m. are at the Las Vegas Raiders, because that's a 4 o'clock kickoff, home against the Minnesota Vikings over in London, which kicks off at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, and I believe it's Week 11 at home against the Baltimore Ravens, which kicks off at 4 o'clock, I believe. Let me double check. I want to make sure I'm giving you the right information. Nope, actually that kickoff is at 4:30. But, yep, every game except Vikings in Week 5, Raiders in Week 12, and Ravens in Week 11 are at 1 o'clock. Does it surprise me? No, because the Browns were terrible last season, hence why they ended up with the number 2 pick in the draft, which they then traded to the Jacksonville Jaguars, allowing Jacksonville to select Travis Hunter. The Browns slid down to number 5 and took Mason Graham out of Michigan. We'll see whether that was the right pick or not. I believe it's going to turn out to be a good pick because Myles Garrett has always been better when he's had a Robin. I think that's why he was so effective when Zadarius Smith was on the opposite side of him and when Jadeveon Clowney was on the opposite side of him. Because then, that means the defense can't just double team him. They have to worry about Zadarius Smith on the opposite side. They have to worry about Jadeveon Clowney on the opposite side. Can Mason Graham have that same effect? We shall see. So, overall, those are my thoughts on the Cleveland Browns schedule, at least on the NFC North side of things. Again, I'm pissed that the Vikings game is happening in London. Thanks a lot, schedule makers. But let me know your thoughts on the Cleveland Browns schedule. What do you think? Do you like that every game, except for 3, are being played at 1 o'clock? By the way, I'm trying to arrange to go to Chicago in week 14, I believe it is. No, week 15, I'm sorry. To go to Soldier Field in Chicago on December 14th. So I would be in snow gear, because it's Chicago, in December, to see the Browns take on the Chicago Bears. Now, if that happens, that would be my 3rd Browns road game ever. Because I've seen the Browns in Pittsburgh, and I've seen the Browns in Seattle. So far on the road, when I've gone to see them, the Browns are 0-2. We'll see if it ends up happening. I'm hoping to make it so, but no promises. But for now, I'm Unger to the Max, and I will see you next time.